Now, in a strong and clear message from the world stage, EAM S Jaishankar has called out state-sponsored terrorism in a veiled but unmistakable reference to Pakistan. Now, he was speaking at the United Nations while inaugurating India's digital exhibition titled The Human Cost of Terrorism. EAM Jaishankar said it's imperative to expose terrorism when it is backed by a state, fueled by extremism and spreads across borders. Now, the exhibition launched just a day before Pakistan takes over the UNSC presidency. It, in fact, showcases deadly terror attacks like the 1993 and 2008 Mumbai attacks and the recent Pahalgam strike as well, all pointing towards pariah Pakistan-based groups. Jaishankar urged the global community to act and not just remember the victims of all of these terror attacks perpetrated by Islamabad-based proxies. It comes as a loud call at the UN, no impunity for terrorists and no tolerance, of course, for nuclear blackmail.
Terrorism is one of the gravest threats to humanity. It is the antithesis of everything that the UN stands for: human rights, rules and norms, and how nations should conduct their dealings with each other. When terrorism is supported by a state against a neighbor, when it is fueled by the bigotry of extremism, when it drives a whole host of illegal activities, it is imperative to call it out publicly. And one way of doing so is to display the havoc that it has wreaked on global society. 5 weeks ago, the United Nations Security Council issued a strong condemnation of a particularly horrific act of terrorism in Pahalgam. It demanded that its perpetrators be held accountable and brought to justice. We have since seen that happen. What that response underlines is a larger significance of the message of zero tolerance for terrorism. The world must come together on some basic concepts: no impunity to terrorists, no treating them as proxies, and no yielding to nuclear blackmail. Any state sponsorship must be exposed and must be countered. By now, we know well that terrorism anywhere is a threat to peace everywhere.
My colleague Natasha Estrani joins us straight from New York on this. Natasha, a very clear and unsparing message from the EAM just a day before, in fact, Pakistan assumes the presidency. Now, is India finally forcing the UN to stop ignoring Islamabad's terror factories?
Well, India has been at it for many years now. India has, across different administrations from India, whether it was Prime Minister Manmohan Singh or now Prime Minister Narendra Modi, increasingly India has been pointing out Pakistan's role in state-sponsored terrorism, its impact not just on India, but the wider region as well. This is something that has been consistent in the Indian foreign policy playbook. But you are right, it has become more stringent, and definitely now with the Pahalgam attack recently, that emphasis from the Indian Foreign Ministry continues in the United Nations. And what in External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar was making very clear is that he was standing at the United Nations. The United Nations is supposed to stand up to exactly this: terrorism, its impact worldwide. And while Foreign Minister Jaishankar did not name Pakistan specifically, the emphasis and the indication was very clear when he said that a neighbor sponsoring terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism that affects a neighbor, and also pointing out and thanking the United Nations 5 weeks ago for that statement, as we just heard, where the United Nations asked for the perpetrators of the Pahalgam attack to be called to justice. So once again, emphasizing to the United Nations to stand up against Pakistan. And you're right, the timing matters a lot, because just now as July begins, it is a rotating UN Security Council presidency which will be held by Pakistan.
Natasha, speaking of the exhibition that the EAM inaugurated, titled The Human Cost of Terrorism, I mean, the proof is for everyone to see right there in New York as Pakistan assumes the presidency. Now, can Islamabad, still play the victim card while hosting global jihad now?
It becomes increasingly difficult, but the history is layered and it is very long. We sometimes forget, but 20 years ago, the United States' stance on Pakistan was very different from what it is now. Once 9/11 happened and Pakistan, the United States directly experienced terrorism, that 9/11 in 2001 was a turning point. That's when they came out and designated Lashkar-e-Taiba as a foreign terrorist organization, which they hadn't done for years before when India had been highlighting it. So the momentum is certainly on India's side, and we have seen when it comes to the billions of dollars of aid the United States has given Pakistan over many years, that too is beginning to change slowly. So the momentum is on India's side, and yet it remains something which clearly no outside country has been able to influence. This policy of Pakistan is beyond US influence, but the US will make the right noises in support of one of its most strategic partners and most important partners, as it keeps saying, which is India.